Number 1, Derinkuyu, 280 feet straight down into the earth. That is how deep this city goes. Carved into volcanic tufa beneath the Cappadocia region of Turkey, Derinkuyu is an 18-story underground fortress engineered to sustain 20,000 people. Not for days, not for weeks. For months, possibly years, complete with livestock pens, food stores, wine presses, oil presses, churches, and schools. The discovery story alone is remarkable. In 1963, a resident in the town above was renovating his home. He knocked down a basement wall. Behind it was a room. Behind that room was another, and another. What he had broken into was an entire subterranean world that had been sealed and forgotten. The engineering is staggering by any era's standard. A single ventilation shaft drops 55 meters, roughly 180 feet, from the surface to the lowest levels. That shaft doubled as a water well. It circulated breathable air across all 18 floors of solid rock. To put that in modern terms, this is a passive climate control system with zero energy input, maintaining a constant interior temperature of approximately 16 degrees Celsius or 61 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. The volcanic rock acts as natural insulation, absorbing heat in summer and retaining warmth in winter. Modern sustainable architects call this thermal mass construction. The builders of Derinkuyu were already doing it. Defense was built into every corridor. Half-ton circular stone doors could be rolled into place from the inside, sealing entire sections against invaders. The passageways were deliberately carved narrow and low, forcing any attacker into single file. This is choke point warfare. One defender with a spear could hold an entire corridor. The wells that supplied fresh water were physically disconnected from the surface, specifically to prevent an enemy from poisoning the supply. That is a level of strategic thinking that anticipates siege warfare tactics still studied in modern military academies. But Derinkuyu was not just a bunker, it was a functioning society. Barrel-vaulted chapels occupy the lower levels. A cruciform church provided space for worship. On the second floor, a barrel-vaulted room has been identified as a missionary school. Small niches carved at regular intervals held oil lamps, lighting the corridors systematically. Dedicated rooms separated waste and animal housing from living quarters. These are not the hallmarks of a temporary hideout. They indicate long-term, organized habitation underground. Structurally, the city has survived thousands of years with zero evidence of a major cave-in. That fact alone deserves attention. The builders understood rock stress distribution at a level that kept 18 stories of carved stone stable across millennia. The ventilation shafts are so precisely cut they still circulate air effectively today. So who built it? The mainstream theory, supported by most archaeologists, attributes the initial levels to the Phrygians in the 8th to 7th century BC. The Phrygians were skilled stoneworkers who inhabited central Anatolia during the Iron Age. A second theory focuses on the Byzantine expansion. During the Arab-Byzantine Wars from the 7th through the 9th centuries AD, Christian communities significantly enlarged the complex, adding churches and deeper refuge levels to protect against Arab raids. This timeline is well supported by the architectural style of the religious spaces. Then there is the fringe theory. Some researchers point out that the structural precision, the stress engineering, and the sheer ambition of 18 interconnected levels suggest a much older origin, possibly an unknown civilization predating the Phrygians entirely. The argument is not baseless. The zero cave-in record over millennia implies engineering knowledge that exceeds what we typically attribute to Iron Age cultures. One more detail. Derinkuyu is believed to be connected to another underground city, Kaymakli, via a subterranean tunnel stretching 8 to 9 kilometers. If that tunnel exists as described, these were not isolated refuges. They were networked. And that raises an obvious question. If ancient peoples could engineer a self-sustaining city for 20,000 people beneath solid rock, what else might be hiding beneath the surface? Number 2. Kaymakli. If Derinkuyu was built for depth, Kaymakli was built for breadth. Located roughly 9 kilometers away in the same Cappadocian landscape, Kaymakli is the widest underground city in the region. It reaches 8 levels deep, approximately 40 meters or 130 feet, with 4 levels currently open to visitors. Its population capacity was smaller, around 3,500 people, but its design philosophy was fundamentally different. Where Derinkuyu relied on a single central ventilation shaft, Kaymakli used 52 individual shafts linking the surface to its lower levels. This is a distributed system. If one shaft was blocked, 51 others kept air flowing. In modern engineering, this is the difference between a centralized and a redundant architecture. Each approach has trade-offs. Derinkuyu's single shaft was efficient but created a single point of failure. Kaymakli's 52 shafts sacrificed efficiency for survivability. The levels were specialized. Stables occupied the first level. Churches were carved into the second. The third level was dedicated to storage. This is vertical zoning, the same principle modern skyscrapers use when they separate retail, office, and residential floors. Communal kitchens indicate a highly organized collective social structure. But within that framework, private living spaces were carved out for individual family groups. Industrial workshops have been identified on dedicated levels, including areas for copper processing and toolmaking. Storage was extensive. Hundreds of storage jars and pits provided advanced food preservation. Sophisticated cisterns and internal wells supplied water independently. Rolling stone doors, identical in concept to Derinkuyu's, sealed corridors from the inside. But Kaymakli had something Derinkuyu did not. Underground burials. Burial sites within the living complex suggest a different relationship with the space. People did not just survive here, they lived and died here. The layout was deliberately more confusing than Derinkuyu's. Researchers describe it as maze-like, designed to disorient any intruder who breached the stone doors. And the tunnels had an acoustic dimension. Specific passages were shaped to carry sound only to certain points, functioning as an internal early warning system. If someone entered unauthorized, the sound of their movement would travel to a guard post, but not echo through the entire complex. The geological material matters here. Kaymakli was carved into soft volcanic tuff that hardened upon exposure to air. This is a remarkable natural property. The builders essentially carved into a soft medium that then strengthened itself over time, actually increasing the city's durability after construction. Christian communities used Kaymakli as late as the 14th century to escape invasions. It was opened to modern visitors in 1964, just 1 year after Derinkuyu's rediscovery. The mainstream theory holds that the same Cappadocian communities built both cities for communal survival. An archaeological historical theory suggests through acoustic engineering and maze-like design point to a more deliberate military intelligence philosophy. The speculative theory pushes further. The two cities and the 9-kilometer tunnel connecting them may represent a single planned megaproject by a civilization with centralized planning capabilities far beyond what we typically assign to ancient Anatolian cultures. If two cities 9 kilometers apart were connected underground thousands of years ago, what happens when a modern superpower tries the same thing at continental scale? Number 3, China's underground Great Wall. More than 3,000 miles. That is the estimated length of China's tunnel network buried beneath its western and central mountain ranges, over 5,000 kilometers. For context, that is longer than the width of the continental United States. This network was not built for shelter. It was engineered specifically to store, move, and protect China's entire nuclear arsenal. The tunnels are buried hundreds of feet deep, designed to survive a first-strike nuclear attack. Corridors are large enough for mobile launch systems and intercontinental ballistic missile transporters. Reinforced bunkers sit at key junctures, sealed behind massive camouflaged blast doors. Surface access points are disguised as ordinary hillsides or agricultural buildings. From satellite imagery, many entrances are virtually invisible. Analysts estimate the network could store up to 3,000 nuclear warheads. Subterranean cities house military personnel and command staff for wartime operations. The logistics grid links storage chambers, launch bays, and underground command centers into a unified system. Internal facilities include specialized maintenance and assembly stations for intercontinental ballistic missiles deep underground. Construction began in the 1960s and 70s. The original purpose was ensuring second strike capability against both the Soviet Union and the United States. The logic is straightforward. If your nuclear weapons are mobile and underground, an enemy cannot destroy them in a first strike. Launch points shift constantly. You cannot target what you cannot find. The secrecy is extreme. Maps and exact coordinates are among China's highest-level state secrets. The network was designed specifically to evade satellite surveillance. Construction required the removal of millions of tons of rock using high-speed tunnel boring machines, driven primarily through stable mountain ranges where a natural rock mass serves as armor. In 2009, Chinese state television briefly aired footage of missile transporters moving through these corridors. That remains the only public glimpse inside the system. Intelligence suggests the network is still being expanded into new provinces as of 2026. The mainstream military analysis treats this as a rational second strike guarantee system. A historical strategic perspective calls it the largest single military construction project in human history, rivaling the original Great Wall in ambition. The speculative theory holds that the 3,000 warhead estimate may be drastically low, and that the network may house weapon systems not yet publicly acknowledged. China built its shadow network through mountains, but Russia went one step further. It hollowed out an entire mountain for a single terrifying purpose. Number 4, Mount Yamantau. In the southern Ural Mountains of Russia, a peak rises 1,640 meters, about 5,380 feet above sea level. It is the highest point in the southern Urals. And according to satellite imagery, intelligence reports, and decades of local testimony, something enormous has been carved inside it. Mount Yamantau is rumored to cover more than 400 square miles of underground space. It is believed capable of housing 60,000 people for extended periods. The Russian military designates it a special object. It is guarded by heavy security and completely off limits to civilians. An entire garrison town called Mezhgorye exists at its base, where workers and military personnel live. Mezhgorye appears on no public maps. Satellite imagery from the 1990s revealed massive excavation piles and rail lines driven directly into the mountain. The facility is serviced by a dedicated high-voltage transmission line and its own electrical substations. An internal rail system and upgraded road networks connect the mountain to surrounding infrastructure. Vertical shafts built at different elevations, between 1,100 and 1,400 meters, handle ventilation and access, exploiting natural pressure differentials to move air. The most telling detail may be the construction timeline. Excavation continued throughout Russia's economic collapse in the 1990s, when the country could barely pay its soldiers, when factories closed, and pensions went unpaid. This project never stopped. Whatever Yamantau's purpose, it was considered more important than the basic functioning of the Russian state. The facility is built deep enough into granite to withstand a direct nuclear warhead strike. Massive amounts of excavated rock remain visible from space, confirming vast internal volume. Internal structures are thought to include industrial facilities, food depots, and systems supporting survival for months or years. Russian officials have offered multiple explanations over the years: a mining site, a food warehouse, a treasury. Each story contradicts the last. Local residents describe strange sounds and heavy vibrations emanating from the mountain. All inquiries are suppressed, 3 theories compete. The mainstream view holds that Yamantau is a continuity of government bunker, rational Cold War infrastructure designed to preserve Russian leadership during nuclear war. The historical military perspective argues the scale far exceeds any known continuity of government facility, suggesting additional unknown purposes. The speculative theory claims Yamantau houses an automated nuclear retaliation system, sometimes called the dead hand or perimeter, designed to launch a full retaliatory strike without human authorization if Russian leadership is destroyed. Whether a bunker, a doomsday machine, or something else entirely, Yamantau represents the modern endpoint of underground construction as strategic survival. But now, let us go much further back in time and much deeper underground. Number 5. The Giza subterranean discovery. On March the 23rd, 2025, Professors Corrado Malanga and Filippo Biondi presented radar survey results that, if confirmed, would reshape the entire field of Egyptology. Their target was the bedrock directly beneath the Pyramid of Khafre on the Giza Plateau. What they found, or claimed to have found, defies easy explanation. Using synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, the team detected structures reaching 2,100 feet, roughly 640 meters underground. The scans revealed 8 massive vertical cylindrical shafts with symmetrical chambers. Detailed imaging identified spiral stairways winding around the perimeter of these shafts. At the base, 2 enormous cube-shaped chambers measured approximately 80 meters or 262 feet wide on each side. Passageways overlap and link multiple levels, forming what appears to be a meticulously planned network. The total estimated scale is 10 times larger than the pyramids above. Additional findings include evidence of an integrated water system with narrow channels and conduits. The chamber's geometry suggests possible design for specific acoustic properties. The layout appears to form a 2-layered system where subterranean structures mirror the surface monuments. Deeper, unidentified voids were detected as far down as 4,000 feet. The subterranean chambers align almost exactly with the cardinal points in the surface pyramid features above them. A separate Japanese research team added another piece. They detected an L-shaped structure measuring 10 meters by 10 meters, buried just 2 meters deep in the western cemetery. Beneath it, a perfectly square cavity 5 to 10 meters deep, filled with air or loose sand. Both teams used non-invasive technology, MON tomography and SAR, to penetrate solid bedrock without any physical excavation. The mainstream response was swift. Dr. Zahi Hawass, the former Egyptian antiquities minister, and other establishment Egyptologists dismissed the findings as radar anomalies in heterogeneous bedrock producing false positives. Some called the images AI-generated mock-ups. The institutional pushback was immediate and emphatic, but there are complicating factors. The inventory stela, an ancient Egyptian text, claims that Pharaoh Khufu restored the Sphinx rather than building it, suggesting the site may be far older than the conventional timeline of 4,500 years. Nowhere inside the pyramids are there inscriptions naming the builders. The underground city, if it exists, could hold answers that the surface monuments do not. 3 interpretive frameworks apply. The mainstream position holds these are radar anomalies, nothing more. The archaeological historical theory invokes the Hall of Records, a repository of pre-dynastic knowledge described in ancient texts, supposedly lying beneath Giza. The speculative theory goes furthest. The structures represent an entire underground civilization predating dynastic Egypt by thousands of years, and the pyramids are merely the visible tip of something far larger. Whether anomaly or discovery, Giza reminds us that our most studied ancient sites may still hold fundamental surprises. And across the Atlantic, another ancient culture built its own underworld, one filled with liquid mercury and artificial stars. Number 6. Teotihuacan's ritual underworld. In 2003, heavy rains opened a sinkhole at the base of the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in Teotihuacan, Mexico. What it revealed was a tunnel extending nearly 330 feet, about 100 meters, directly beneath the pyramid. The entrance had been sealed nearly 2,000 years earlier with massive boulders. This was not accidental collapse. It was deliberate concealment. The deepest chambers contained pools of liquid mercury. This was a substance previously believed unknown to Mesoamerican civilizations at this scale. The mercury is interpreted as a representation of an underworld river or sacred lake, a literal river of the dead, shimmering in the darkness beneath a pyramid dedicated to a feathered serpent god. The tunnel walls were lined with powdered pyrite, commonly known as fool's gold, and hematite. When lit by torchlight, these minerals would glimmer and reflect light across the surfaces, mimicking a starry sky underground. Hundreds of small yellow clay spheres coated in jarosite were recovered. Researchers believe these may represent stars or planets. The tunnel ended in 3 chambers arranged in a cruciform or cloverleaf pattern. The artifact density was extraordinary. More than 100,000 offerings were recovered, including jade, obsidian, and rare shells sourced from distant coastlines. A small robot named Tlaloc II TC was deployed to explore the final, unreachable sections where the tunnel became too narrow for humans. The depth provided constant cool temperatures, naturally preserving organic offerings like wood and seeds that would have decayed on the surface. This was not a dwelling. It was never designed for habitation. It was a symbolic underworld engineered for rituals of transformation. Yet, despite the thousands of offerings, 0 human remains or royal burials have been found. Whoever was honored in this space remains unknown. The broader engineering is equally impressive. Stone-sided canals rerouted the San Juan River under the Avenue of the Dead nearby. Similar tunnels have been detected beneath both the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. Mining and transporting liquid mercury in a pre-industrial society required extraordinary logistical effort and carried significant health risks. Mercury is toxic. The workers who handled it would have suffered. The tunnel was deliberately backfilled with dirt and rock in sections to prevent unauthorized entry, even in antiquity. The entire complex was engineered as a microcosm of the Teotihuacan cosmos, aligned with solar movements. The mainstream theory interprets this as a ritual space for elite ceremonies connected to the city's founding mythology. The archaeological perspective notes that the mercury, pyrite, and geometric precision suggest an advanced understanding of materials science and cosmological engineering that went far beyond simple symbolism. The speculative theory asks whether the mercury served a functional purpose, possibly acoustic, electromagnetic, or preservative, that we do not yet understand. Teotihuacan's builders created a cosmos underground. But in the Peruvian Andes, an even older civilization built something arguably more unsettling. Not a cosmos. A machine designed to alter human consciousness. Number 7. Chavín de Huántar. Built approximately 1200 to 500 BC in the Peruvian Andes, Chavín de Huántar predates the Inca Empire by over 2,000 years. It is not a city. It is not a refuge. Researchers describe it as a technology of experience, an underground labyrinth engineered specifically to manipulate sound, light, and perception. The complex consists of an extensive gallery system built with massive cut stone blocks. No mortar was used. The stones were fitted together with such precision that the structure still stands today more than 2,500 years later. But the structural engineering is not the point. The acoustics are. Dr. Miriam Kohler and other researchers at Stanford University have measured the acoustic properties of Chavín's galleries. The reverberation time in key chambers is under 0.5 seconds. That is an extraordinarily short decay. For comparison, a modern concert hall typically aims for 1.5 to 2 seconds. The short reverberation at Chavín is ideal for rhythmic instruments, specifically large shell trumpets called pututus, made from strombus shells. When blown inside these galleries, the pututus produced sounds that mimicked animal roars, jaguars, and eagles, amplified and distorted by the tunnel geometry. At the heart of the labyrinth stands the Lanzon monolith, a 15-foot granite carving of a deity with fangs and serpent hair. The galleries surrounding it were designed for total sensory deprivation. Narrow, windowless passageways plunged visitors into complete darkness. Beneath the stone floors, water channels carried rushing currents, creating a constant low roar that participants could feel through the ground beneath their feet. This is infrasound combined with physical vibration. Modern researchers recognize this as a technique for inducing altered states of consciousness without any chemical assistance, though the builders of Chavín likely used San Pedro cactus as well. The layout was deliberately disorienting. Zigzag turns and dead ends overwhelmed the visitor's sense of direction. Alcoves were shaped to provide what acousticians call energetic early reflections, amplifying whispers into booming voices. High echo density in specific chambers created a sense of envelopment, making sound feel alive and omnidirectional. Then, at precisely calculated moments, specialized shafts projected beams of sunlight onto the Lanzon. After total darkness and overwhelming sound, the sudden appearance of light on the face of a stone god would have been psychologically devastating. Drainage and ventilation systems built into the complex remain functional today. The galleries have survived largely without post-period modification. What visitors see now is essentially what initiates experienced over 2 millennia ago. Chavín established the blueprint for all subsequent Andean sacred architecture. The mainstream theory identifies Chavín as an elite religious center, using sophisticated acoustics to project ritual authority. The archaeological interpretation calls it one of the earliest known examples of psychoacoustic engineering, rivaling anything built until the modern era. The speculative theory holds that the builders possessed a systematic understanding of frequency, resonance, and consciousness that has been largely lost and has not yet been replicated. Chavín's builders engineered perception itself. But halfway around the world in eastern China, someone carved something equally massive and left absolutely no explanation behind. Number 8. The Longyou Caves. In June of 1992, farmers in Zhejiang Province, China, decided to drain 5 small ponds at the base of Fengqing Hill. What they found beneath the water was not natural, It was 24 enormous artificial caverns carved into sandstone, with ceiling heights reaching up to 30 meters, roughly 100 feet. The estimated volume of rock removed was 1 million cubic meters. Every surface, the walls, the ceilings, the pillars, is covered in uniform, parallel diagonal chisel marks. These marks are applied with mechanical precision across thousands of square meters. The corners are sharp 90-degree angles. The walls are flat. Massive stone columns were deliberately left in place to support the weight of the hill above, correctly calculated load-bearing structures that have held for over 2,000 years. Here's where the mystery deepens. No mention of the Longyou Caves exists in any ancient Chinese historical record, no labor log, no imperial decree, no bureaucratic entry of any kind. The Chinese were meticulous record keepers. During the Western Han Dynasty, the period to which clay pots found in the cave silt have been dated, approximately 200 BC to 23 AD, the state documented construction projects extensively. A project that removed 1 million cubic meters of stone would have required enormous labor forces. And yet, total silence. The caves are thermally isolated from one another. There are no cross-connecting passages between them. Carved troughs and water traps manage rainfall and surface runoff entering through ventilation shafts. The caves are aligned along a south to southwest orientation, maximizing natural sunlight illumination through their openings. The sidewalls are angled inward, inclining to reduce stress on the ceilings. This is not rough quarrying. This is a sophisticated architectural technique for load management. Short steel chisels were found in one cave, yet the volume of work defies explanation by simple hand tools alone. The caves have remained structurally intact for over 2,000 years, despite being fully submerged in water for most of that time. If they were quarries, as the simplest explanation suggests, the decorative and perfectly uniform chisel patterns across every interior surface would be entirely unnecessary. You do not decorate a quarry. The chambers are empty, no artifacts beyond the pots, no burials, no soot from fires, no evidence of habitation whatsoever. Many chambers remain flooded, with their lower sections still unexplored as of 2026. The mainstream theory calls them large-scale quarries for a regional construction project. The archaeological perspective argues that the decorative uniformity, precision engineering, and total absence of records suggest a purpose far beyond quarrying, possibly imperial, military, or ceremonial. The speculative theory proposes that the caves were built by, or for, a civilization or authority that has been entirely erased from the historical record, and the flooded lower levels may hold answers no one has yet seen. 1 million cubic meters of rock removed by hand, and not a single word written about it. That silence is, in some ways, louder than anything else in this documentary. But our next entry is not silent at all. It is the loudest cave system on Earth. Number 9. Mammoth Cave. Located in central Kentucky, Mammoth Cave is the largest known cave system on the planet. Over 426 miles, roughly 686 kilometers, have been officially mapped. Explorers believe the total length could exceed 600 miles. Every year, new passages are discovered and surveyed. Unlike every other entry on this list, Mammoth Cave was not built. It was formed over millions of years by water-dissolving Mississippian-aged limestone. The cave is part of the central Kentucky karst, a landscape defined by sinkholes, underground springs, and disappearing streams. The Green River, flowing nearby on the surface, has controlled the cave's development, its erosional force carving new passages while abandoning old ones as the water table shifted. But humans discovered Mammoth Cave long before modern explorers. Native Americans explored over 19 miles of its passages roughly 5,000 years ago, navigating by cane torches. The dry air in certain sections preserved their sandals, their torches, and even human remains for millennia. That preservation is not accidental. The cave maintains a constant internal temperature of 54 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius, regardless of what happens on the surface. This thermal stability, combined with low humidity in the upper levels, creates a natural time capsule. The scale inside defies easy description. The Grand Avenue is a passage so broad it has been compared to a city boulevard. Some rooms have ceilings so high that the light from lanterns cannot reach the top. While primarily a horizontal system, vertical pits and shafts drop hundreds of feet into lower levels. In 1925, an explorer named Floyd Collins became trapped in a narrow passage. His death over the following days became one of America's first major media sensations, drawing national attention to the cave. In 1972, explorers achieved a breakthrough that changed everything. They connected the Flint Ridge cave system to the Mammoth system, creating the world's longest cave in a single moment of discovery. Mammoth Cave is also a living ecosystem. Blind fish, cave crayfish, and endangered bat species inhabit its darkness, an isolated biological world that evolved independently from the surface. Explorers report auditory pareidolia in the deepest sections, hearing what they call cave voices caused by water echoes in absolute silence. Some passages are permanently sealed due to hazardous air pockets and toxic gas accumulation. Some sections are geologically dead, dry, and unchanging. Others are still alive, still forming stalactites, still being shaped by water. The mainstream geological view treats Mammoth Cave as a textbook example of karst dissolution over deep time. The archaeological perspective notes that the extent of Native American exploration, 19 miles with nothing but cane torches, suggests systematic mapping knowledge that has been lost. The speculative view observes that with potentially 600 or more miles of passages, the unexplored sections could contain sealed chambers, undiscovered species, or evidence of human use far older than anything currently documented. Every entry so far has been grounded in physical evidence. Radar scans, excavation records, satellite imagery, acoustic measurements. Our next entry is different. It is grounded almost entirely in testimony, pattern recognition, and the uncomfortable question of what governments actually do underground. Number 10. Dulce Base. Beneath Archuleta Mesa, near the small town of Dulce, New Mexico, there allegedly sits a facility that has become one of the most persistent legends in American conspiracy culture. It is described by its proponents as a deep underground military base, or DUM, with 7 levels of increasing security classification. Level 1 handles personnel. Level 4 supposedly contains genetic laboratories. Level 6 has been dubbed Nightmare Hall. The most prominent testimony comes from Phil Schneider, a geologist who claimed that in 1979, an accidental drilling breach led to a firefight between Delta Force operators and subterranean beings. Schneider displayed chest scars he attributed to an alien weapon. He gave public lectures about his experience until his death in 1996, which was ruled a suicide but which his supporters consider suspicious. The original source for much of the Dulce narrative was Paul Benowitz, an electronics specialist who claimed to intercept radio signals between unidentified craft and the base. Benowitz later suffered a mental breakdown, and declassified documents suggest Air Force intelligence officers actively fed him disinformation to discredit his legitimate observations of military activity in the area. Local residents in Dulce report unmarked military helicopters, strange lights emanating from the mesa, and low-frequency thumping sounds from underground. Satellite data has occasionally shown thermal plumes from the mesa inconsistent with the known volcanic activity. These are verifiable observations. Their interpretation is where things diverge. Here is what is not disputed. The United States government does operate deep underground military bases that is publicly acknowledged. The question is not whether such facilities exist. The question is whether this specific one does and what it contains. The mainstream position is clear. Dulce Base is a complete fabrication built on Cold War paranoia and one man's mental health crisis. The investigative middle ground suggests a real underground military facility may exist in the region, but its purpose is conventional and classified, with the alien narrative serving as useful cover to discredit anyone who asks questions. The speculative theory takes the whistleblower testimonies at face value and holds that the facility represents a reality that governments worldwide are concealing. Regardless of where one lands on the spectrum, Dulce raises a legitimate question. Why does the U.S. government maintain extensive underground infrastructure in remote locations, and why is asking about it treated as fringe? What connects every site we have examined from Derinkuyu to Dulce is a shared set of engineering problems. Every underground builder in history faced the same 3 enemies. And the solutions they developed are remarkably similar. The engineering of darkness, bad air, no water, total darkness. Every civilization that built underground had to solve these 3 problems or die trying. What is extraordinary is how similar the solutions are across continents, across millennia, and across cultures that never had contact with one another. Ventilation came first. Derinkuyu relied on a single 55-meter shaft to aerate 18 levels. It still functions. Kaymakli used 52 separate shafts, a distributed approach prioritizing redundancy over efficiency. China's underground Great Wall uses industrial-scale air filtration across 5,000 kilometers of nuclear tunnels. Mount Yamantau exploits natural pressure differentials between shafts at varying elevations. Same problem, different scales. Parallel logic. Water was the second challenge. Derinkuyu's wells were physically disconnected from the surface, a security innovation with no known precedent in the ancient world. Kaymakli used internal cisterns and sophisticated collection systems. The SAR data from Giza suggests an integrated hydraulic system 2,100 feet underground. Teotihuacan's engineers rerouted an entire river through stone-sided canals under the Avenue of the Dead. Chavín used water channels not for drinking but for sound, roading rushing water beneath stone floors to create an omnipresent roar. Longyou's builders carved troughs and water traps that have managed rainfall infiltration for over 2,000 years. Even Mammoth Cave's development is controlled by water, the Green River shaping the system over geological time. Light was the third adversary. Derinkuyu solved it simply with oil lamp niches at regular intervals. Longyou aligned its cavern openings south to southwest, maximizing natural sunlight penetration. Chavín used specialized shafts to project beams of light onto the Lanson monolith at precise moments, turning illumination into theater. Teotihuacan lined tunnel walls with pyrite and hematite to reflect torchlight into an artificial night sky, and beneath all three challenges runs a constant. Temperature. Derinkuyu maintains 16 degrees Celsius. Mammoth Cave holds at 12 degrees Celsius. Underground spaces self-regulate temperature using nothing but the thermal mass of the surrounding earth and rock. Volcanic tufa, limestone, granite, sandstone. Each demanded different engineering approaches. But the principle is identical. These parallel innovations raise a fundamental question. Were these solutions independently discovered by cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years? Or do they reflect a shared body of knowledge that has been lost? That question leads directly to another pattern. Not just the engineering, but the secrecy. The architecture of secrecy. It is not only that these underground cities exist, it is that their builders, almost without exception, tried to make them disappear. Teotihuacan's tunnel was deliberately sealed with massive boulders nearly 2,000 years ago, then backfilled with dirt and rock in sections to prevent unauthorized entry. The Longyou Caves represent 1 million cubic meters of excavated stone with zero mention in any historical record, the most labor-intensive classified project of the ancient world. Derinkuyu was forgotten entirely until a man knocked down his basement wall in 1963. Kaymakli was used as recently as the 14th century, then abandoned and forgotten within 600 years. Only reopened to visitors in 1964, the modern world follows the same pattern. China's underground Great Wall has its maps and coordinates classified at the highest state level. Mount Yamantau's officials cycle through contradictory cover stories, mining, food storage, treasury, active disinformation rather than passive forgetting. If the 2025 radar findings beneath Giza are accurate, an entire underground city 10 times the size of the pyramids has been invisible for millennia. The motives differ, but the pattern holds. Derinkuyu and Kaymakli were hidden to protect refugees. Concealment was survival. China and Russia hide underground infrastructure for military advantage. Concealment is deterrence. Teotihuacan's tunnel was sealed to protect sacred space. Concealment was spiritual. Longyou offers no clear motive at all. The absence of records is itself the mystery. There's a structural reason underground sites vanish from history. They are invisible to surface-level archaeology. You only find them by accident. A sinkhole opens after heavy rain. A homeowner renovates a basement. Farmers drain a pond. Modern detection technologies like muon tomography and SAR now allow identification without excavation, potentially revealing structures hidden for millennia. But these technologies are new. The question is how many sites remain undetected. If Derinkuyu was unknown until 1963 and Longyou until 1992, the honest assessment is that we have no idea how many more underground structures exist. The more successful the concealment, the more completely the knowledge is lost, and the more shocking the eventual rediscovery. This pattern of concealment leads directly to the most uncomfortable question in this documentary. How much of human history is still buried? Competing timelines. Every site in this documentary can be placed on a timeline. The question is whose timeline you trust. The mainstream sequence runs like this: Derinkuyu, 8th to 7th century BC, attributed to the Phrygians; Chavín de Huántar, 1200 to 500 BC; the Longyou Caves, Western Han Dynasty, approximately 200 BC; Teotihuacan, approximately 100 AD. Kaymakli significantly expanded during the Byzantine era. The mainstream framework relies on artifact dating, geological analysis, and cultural context. It provides a coherent narrative for most sites. Its weakness is that it cannot explain the Longyou silence, the Giza depth anomalies, or the engineering precision that exceeds the known capabilities of the civilizations credited with the work. The archaeological revisionist timeline proposes that many sites are significantly older than their conventional dates. The inventory stela suggests Giza predates dynastic Egypt. Derinkuyu's zero cave-in record over millennia implies engineering knowledge beyond what the Phrygians are known to have possessed. The absence of records at Longyou does not necessarily mean the records were lost. It may mean the builders predate Chinese record-keeping itself. A culture that engineered psychoacoustic spaces 3,200 years ago at Chavín possessed knowledge that modern acousticians are still analyzing. Then there is the convergence problem. Similar engineering solutions appear on different continents. Parallel evolution is one explanation, shared ancestral knowledge is another. The speculative timeline goes furthest. It proposes an advanced pre-flood or pre-catastrophe civilization that built the deepest and most sophisticated structures, which were later reused and expanded by historical cultures. The Giza subterranean complex at 2,100 to 4,000 feet would predate any known Egyptian engineering by an enormous margin. The legendary Hall of Records, if it exists beneath Giza, could rewrite the entire timeline of human civilization. There is a pattern worth noting. Historical cultures consistently built on top of or within existing underground structures. Byzantines expanded Phrygian tunnels, Christians occupied Cappadocian caves, Teotihuacan's rulers are absent from their own ritual tunnel, Longyou's creators are entirely unknown, Giza's pyramids carry no builder inscriptions, and there is a critical distinction in archaeological dating that applies across every site. Clay pots in Longyou date to the Western Han Dynasty, but the caves themselves could be far older. Artifacts date occupation, not construction. A Roman coin found in a Gothic cathedral does not mean the Romans built it. Both Chavín and the Giza chambers show evidence of deliberate acoustic engineering, a specialized discipline appearing independently across the ancient world. If surface civilizations are routinely destroyed by war, climate change, and time, underground structures may be the only surviving record of their builders. The honest conclusion is this: we do not yet have enough data to definitively choose between these timelines, but the evidence demands continued investigation rather than premature closure. Modern relevance. The instinct to build underground did not end with the ancient world. It is accelerating. Both the United States and Russia maintain active underground command facilities. Cheyenne Mountain, Raven Rock, and Yamantau are all operational. China's underground Great Wall is still growing. Cities worldwide are building deeper. London's Crossrail project, Istanbul's Marmaray Tunnel, Singapore's underground master plan. These are not military projects, they are civil infrastructure pushing further beneath the surface every decade. Climate resilience is driving part of this trend. Underground structures maintain stable temperatures without energy input. Derinkuyu's 16 degrees Celsius and Mammoth Cave's 12 degrees Celsius are achieved passively, using nothing but the mass of the surrounding rock. Modern sustainable building design is actively incorporating this principle under the name thermal mass construction, rediscovering what Cappadocian builders knew thousands of years ago. Underground farming using LED lighting is being developed in former tunnels and bunkers across Europe and Asia. Deep geological repositories like Finland's Onkalo facility apply the same principle as ancient builders. Bury it deep enough, and geology becomes the containment. In Onkalo's case, the material being contained is nuclear waste that must remain isolated for 100,000 years. The ventilation lesson persists. Derinkuyu's single 55-meter shaft and Kaymakli's 52 shaft system represent two engineering philosophies still debated in modern tunnel design: centralized versus distributed airflow. Derinkuyu's disconnected wells anticipated modern concerns about water security in conflict zones. Chavin's psychoacoustic principles are being studied by modern architects designing concert halls and immersive environments. Elon Musk's Boring Company explicitly aims to make underground construction faster and cheaper, solving the same basic problem ancient builders faced. How do you move through rock efficiently? China's mobile nuclear tunnels demonstrate that underground construction remains the ultimate military advantage. You cannot strike what you cannot find. Private bunker construction has surged globally, driven by geopolitical instability. The instinct to go underground is unchanged. And perhaps the most striking modern application is not on Earth at all. Planned habitats for Mars are essentially underground shelters, using the same principles that Derinkuyu used: thermal regulation, radiation shielding, sealed atmosphere. The regolith of Mars would serve the same function as the volcanic tufa of Cappadocia. Underground environments naturally preserve artifacts, organic materials, and human remains, making them inadvertent time capsules. Longyou's inclined walls reducing ceiling stress, and Derinkuyu's zero cave-in record represent engineering solutions that modern builders would benefit from studying. Despite all our technology, no one has attempted to replicate Derinkuyu's full 18-level, 20,000-person underground city. The ambition itself has not been matched. The most advanced civilizations in history, ancient and modern, have all reached the same conclusion. The safest place to build is underground. What the darkness preserves. From Derinkuyu's 280 feet to Giza's potential 4,000 feet, humanity has been building downward for millennia. The engineering constants repeat across every site: ventilation, water, light, structural integrity. The same four problems, solved independently across continents and centuries. Every culture that built underground also concealed what it built. Secrecy is inseparable from subterranean construction. Whether fleeing Arab raids, surviving nuclear war, or preparing for planetary colonization, the reasons change, but the instinct remains. From Chavin's sound labyrinth to Giza's resonant chambers, builders understood that underground spaces have unique acoustic properties worth engineering. Underground environments self-regulate temperature using nothing but the mass of the Earth, a principle as relevant for Mars habitats as it was for Cappadocian refugees. The builders who went deepest left the fewest traces: Longyou's missing records, Giza's missing inscriptions, Teotihuacan's missing rulers. The knowledge gap is real, but the detection revolution is underway. Muon tomography and synthetic aperture radar mean we are only beginning to see what lies beneath. The next decade of discoveries may dwarf everything in this documentary. Mammoth Cave still adds miles of mapped passages each year. Longyou's lower chambers remain flooded. Giza's deepest voids are untouched. China is still digging. Russia is still excavating. New private and government tunnel projects launch every year. Did these civilizations all independently discover the same principles? Or is there a shared foundation of knowledge we have not yet identified? We do not have all the answers. And claiming certainty about sites that are still being explored is premature. Every discovery in this documentary began with someone asking a simple question: what is down there? A farmer draining a pond, a homeowner knocking down a wall, a radar team scanning bedrock. The Earth itself provides insulation, structural support, temperature regulation, and concealment. Underground builders across history simply learned to use what was already there. The deepest secrets of human civilization may not be written in any book or carved on any monument. They may be waiting in silence beneath our feet.